I'm thrilled you're here for today's conversation about something that can truly transform your business, having the right number two leader. I'm Alec Broadfoot, CEO of Vision Spark, where we help entrepreneurial companies find and hire the right number two leaders so they can scale their companies and create more impact. If you felt overwhelmed, like everything depends on you, this conversation is for you. So the right number two leader is a game changer for all small to mid-sized companies. This is the first in a series where we'll explore the impact of a strong number two leader. And to kick things off, I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Kelly Knight, the number two leader and integrator for EOS Worldwide. Welcome, Kelly.
Oh, it's great to be here, Alec. Thanks for inviting me.
So Kelly, I'm curious, when did you feel like you were suited to become the integrator for EOS Worldwide?
Well, that's an interesting question because it wasn't a thing. It wasn't on my horizon at all. I was living a pretty nice life in the financial industry. Um, I had been tinkering around with this idea that I sort of came and accomplished everything that I'd wanted to do and was open and receptive to new opportunities. Was in Vancouver, had an accident, had a terrible shoulder injury, and was on, of all things, narcotics. When I get a call from a recruiter, and that recruiter was actually filling the seat for the integrator of EOS Worldwide at the time, because that was part of Gino and Don of EOS Worldwide. It was part of their succession plan.
Mm.
So Gino had already passed the baton for Visionary over to Mike Payton at the time. And it was now his business partner, Don Tinney's turn to pass the baton for Integrator off to who would be the missing puzzle piece for Mike Payton. So it really was not until I was literally interviewing for the seat that I knew that I would want that seat. But I had never heard of EOS. I had not been part of an EOS run company. I didn't know an EOS implementer. So that whole world was really very new to me.
That's interesting. So it took some drugs to
I mean,
persuade you.
well, let's just say that maybe that helped with my being open-minded, right? To an opportunity that was probably so drastically different from what I had been doing in the financial services industry. But I feel like it was a God thing. It was fortuitous that this opportunity presented itself when it did.
Yeah, love it when there's divine intervention. So, and then how long have you been the integrator for EOS?
I am in my ninth year. I mean, it
Ninth
seems
year,
hard
okay.
to believe, but 9 years. It was back in 2016.
Okay.
Uh, and so there's been a lot of things that have happened in that nine
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, that's great. I think we met in 2017 at the very first EOS conference in Atlanta.
We did. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was such a great conference. I was blown away with, for it being a very first conference, how well it was run and organized, and the speakers and the content. It was awesome. So, um, something I've admired about you and your visionary, Mark O'Donnell, is your business relationship. Share
Hmm.
with us, why is that such a successful partnership?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons, and he might give different answers than I would, candidly, but I think they'd all have a very similar theme. And I think it's that
Mhm.
we're both just very passionate about the impact that EOS makes in the world. So the really our purpose and why we exist together as visionary integrator duo is very, very aligned. We wake up every day truly obsessed about taking EOS to the world and continuing to make greater and greater impact everywhere. I think also we share a lot of similar core values personally. So we talk about core values in terms of a business, but we also have core values in terms of the personal way that we work together, and so that's aligned in that regard. We just have a lot of fun too. I think we get up and we enjoy what we do. We have a lot of passion for the work, and we are very respectful of each other's role. So I respect Mark and his unique ability and talents as a visionary. And I think he likewise respects my position as an integrator. And so those just harmoniously really fit well together. And then Mark and I, Mark Winters, co-author of Rocket Fuel, would say it's a three-part puzzle in these relationships. So there's the visionary, there's the integrator, that must fit, but then both the visionary and the integrator must fit with the business as a whole. And so
Mhm.
I think that three-part puzzle really fits well. Um,
Yeah.
and it's about serving the greater good. So we are not in the seat for really any other reason than we are just so passionate about what we do. And there's a synergy too, like a ping pong match, if you will, that we play back and forth, where maybe he throws out an idea and I'll build upon it and we go back and forth. So we're really great, I think, strategic thinking partners for one another in ways that are pretty fun.
Yeah, good collaboration
Mhm.
between the two of you. You mentioned that you and Mark are both very passionate. You both have the same mission and the same vision that you're just aligned, right? You're for the greater good. You're both for each other. You're for the greater good, and I think that is a huge key. Where, when we work with clients before they hire us, we see that maybe their previous integrator was just not aligned, and or maybe the visionary was not a very good communicator, and there's a lot of other issues there. But I think that's a really good point, that you're both very committed to the same vision.
Mhm. Yeah, and greater good, I mean, a big part of greater good is getting all of the arrows pointing in the same direction,
Mm.
all of the human energy focused towards that common goal or mission or purpose or whatever that is that you're in business to do. And so it all starts with the visionary integrator. We say at US, as goes the visionary integrator duo, so goes the leadership team. And as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. So if we can't get it right in our same page meetings, it's very unlikely that the whole rest of the team will get it either. And those that we serve will suffer. It's an abundance minded way that we hope that sometimes it comes at personal discomfort serving the greater good. That's the hard part, right? That's the
Right,
discipline and the
right.
rigor that's
Yeah.
required. And I think Mark and I both are long game players. We can play the long game for a long time and do hard things. And so if you come into it with a mindset that it's not always going to be roses, rainbows, and lollipops, and if you're both really same page about the energy that is required to do that, it's another thing I think Mark and I are very aligned on our energy levels. Um, if you think of her frequency, your
Mhm.
frequency has to be at the same pace. Mark probably wouldn't do well with a integrator who's like a 2 quick start. Whereas, I'm a 7-7-6-2. So I think there's some pacing too that really helps us.
Yeah, that's really good. And as I've worked with a lot of visionaries and integrators, and you mentioned, like, everyone needs to be going in the same direction. Um, I I was reading a book called Boys in the Boat, and it came out last year in a movie, which is a phenomenal book and a phenomenal movie if you haven't seen it. But all the rowers in the boat have to be completely in sync, and that if one person is off with their pace or their velocity or their strength, it throws the whole boat awry, right? And so it's very important in business that there's everyone's going in the same direction, right? Everyone's rowing, and everyone's uh, you know uh, going forward and have the best interest in mind. So yeah, that's a really good point. You mentioned you and Mark have fun together. I'm curious, how do you guys have fun together? Probably in business, but do you guys do anything outside of business to have fun?
Well, we do. That being in mind, he lives in Pennsylvania. I live in Michigan. So, what we do though is when we do get together for quarterlies or what we call quarterly collaborative exchanges, where we're visiting implementers and things like that, we will build in time. We've gone hiking. We like to just share time together, going for walks. We've done all kinds of things, Alec, but primarily it's being outdoors, kind of outdoorsy sorts of things,
Yeah.
and just maybe getting some physical exercise together. But we really just enjoy sitting together and talking about life, and once in a while having a beer or something like that. And it's just being able to be authentically who we are in that moment. And so I'm always grateful for those opportunities in person, which are more rare than they are common, but it just goes to show it's really more about the day to day and how it feels, even to show up on something like Zoom,
Mhm.
working together. Can you have fun no matter whether you're in person or virtual, face to face or not? And I think that's the compelling purpose behind it that unites us in that regard.
Yeah, that's great. What is your meeting cadence? You have your same page meetings. What is the frequency of that?
So every Monday for 90 minutes in the morning, we meet. It's the way we start off every single week. So it sets the tone and tenor for the whole rest of the week for us. We're 100% same page. And then once a month, we have a half day together, and that's more of working on the business than in the business. But candidly, Mark and I would hesitate to say there's not a day that we're not talking. I mean, Monday through Friday, excluding weekends, but there's just not a day that we're not communicating about something because that same pageness matters that much. And I recognize that is really a different meeting pulse than what I hear other visionary integrators talking about. But it's also a great testament to you must do what works for you, for your duo. What does keeping circles connected look like? Um, Mark is an out loud thinker, and so that is time, that takes time, which is a good thing. And I want to know what he has to think. I've had some integrators say, I just don't have time for all of that sitting and contemplating, and because it can be time consuming, but it's the most important work because that's where we're listening to the gold, listening for the gold to extract the very best ideas and what can be done and done well. So, I always encourage just, what can you do to make sure that meeting pulse is just right? Not too much, not too little, but just right.
Yeah. And I have seen that the best visionary integrator partnerships have more frequent meetings. They're meeting minimum once a week. But yeah, that's great. And so in terms of visionaries, they say like people like us have 20 ideas a day or 10 ideas a day, and one's good. So how do you handle that with Mark? If I'm sure Mark has a lot more ideas that are that are good than I do, but how do you handle it when he's got a phenomenal idea in his mind, and you think, man, that is just not going to work?
Mhm. Well, one of the things that Mark does, we both are in strategic coach. And so we use a tool called the impact filter. It's a one-page thinking exercise for those of you that might not be familiar with it, but it really allows you to think about best outcome, worst outcome, and some success criteria around an idea. And so Mark will do an impact filter, and I don't even see a lot of them. By the
Mhm.
time he's done with the impact filter, he may have convinced himself that it's no longer a good idea or not a good idea now. So I don't even know how many ideas Mark has in a given day because I don't always see all of them. But the ones that he does come to me with, he's a very discerning visionary, meaning he has a lot of really good ideas, meaning we could probably implement far more than we actually do, just simply because of capacity and time and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But sometimes if there's an idea, even if I think it's a great idea, but I don't feel like it's the right time or there's some constraint around it, it might just be listening for what is the root of what he's trying to accomplish, because there might be a different way to get to the same outcome. There might be another a collaboration that could solve that problem rather than us having to maybe solve that problem in the spirit of free zone collaboration that I know, Alec, you and I admire with the strategic coach community. So sometimes that's the case, and sometimes it is just a hard decision, and sometimes we do battle a little bit with, hey, this we just cannot do this right now. Can you live with it? Can you disagree and commit? And so, it's not always easy, but I think when you have a plan and a thought process, it
Mhm.
becomes easier as a VI duo. And I'm not quick to shut him down, meaning I think that there's an opportunity to always talk about it, because if you feel heard at the end of the day, you can generally handle a no better than if you feel like you've been shut down right out of the gate without having a chance to sort of explain your thinking process and ideation.
That's so true, and I love that about my integrator, John. He's such a good listener, and he's super patient, and he asks great questions, and he's a very good critical thinker. So yeah, that's awesome. So
And I would
um,
say, Alec, too, just as a
yeah.
side, I always feel a little sad when I hear an integrator. And again, I totally understand this perspective intellectually, but it
Mhm.
makes me a little bit sad when I hear an integrator say, I just don't enjoy it. I just don't like that process. I don't like sitting there. I'm constantly just thinking in the back of my mind this to-do list of things that needs my time and attention. And that feels more important to me. Maybe some
Mhm.
of it is. But I would hazard to say if you're an integrator who either doesn't like that process, period, or you just don't like doing that with your visionary counterpart, please get out of your seat, because for your own benefit, as well as that visionary's benefit, because that visionary deserves a number two integrator who really thrives and enjoys, doesn't just tolerate that process, but really thrives in it.
That's such a good point. Yeah. And there's so many visionary integrator partnerships that don't work out, right? So before I ask you about that, I want to ask you um, about your responsibilities as EOS or integrator of EOS worldwide. What are your responsibilities? What are you committed to do? How does Mark measure your performance, knowing that you're doing a good job?
Well, I mean, I'm harmoniously integrating the functions of the organization so that they are working harmoniously together. I am responsible for making the vision a reality. Whatever we decide is on our vision traction organizer or two-page business plan, it's my job to make that real and to do it well with quality and care. I'm getting to 80% on our organizational checkup, which just means we're 80% strong in vision, traction, people, process, data, and issues.
Mhm.
And when that's not right, that's on me as the integrator. I'm responsible for implementing EOS throughout EOS worldwide, top to bottom, responsible for the P&L or the business results. I'm responsible for organizational clarity, making sure that everybody's on the same page, those arrows being all directed in the same direction. That's on the integrator. And when that's not right, that's on me. So those are some of the biggies. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have direct reports, right? So um, what are their responsibilities? Are they over marketing, finance, sales, operations? Like who are your direct reports and what are they responsible for?
Well, and that's actually changed. It shifted in the
Mhm.
last quarter, Alec, because we had an accountability chart that had everybody in one place. Now we have moved towards a shared services business model that has three business units separated out by business line. So we have one business unit that is our EOS implementer community. We have another business unit that is for EOS One, which is EOS pure software. And we have a third business unit that is for events, like what you said earlier, the EOS conference or Rocket Fuel Visionary Integrator master classes, things like that. And so there are leaders in each one of those teams, and they report to me. So you've got your typical sales and marketing, operations,
Mhm.
technology, and finance and administration, and those report up to me.
So I see some confusion, like, I'm a strategic coach and I have clients, but I always see, or frequently I'll see visionaries who they are in multiple seats, right? So they're the visionary and maybe they're in sales and maybe they're in marketing or maybe they're in finance still. So what do you have to say to those visionaries that want to be in multiple seats?
So they want to be in multiple seats or
Mhm.
they are in multiple seats.
Both, both. So I think a lot of them want to. It's more of letting go, or it's uh,
Okay.
control, right?
Well, interestingly, I've worked with 11 visionaries in my journey,
Hmm.
but not a one of them wanted to have another seat other than being the visionary. So I don't know that I can speak to that from personal real world experience, other than to say the visionaries that I've worked with, they're blissfully happy being in that visionary seat, fully living in their unique ability. Perhaps with like where there's a specialty, maybe it's marketing or sales, if there's passion for that, and they're simply just coordinating it and having great conversations with those leaders, but not having any responsibility for those seats. So I don't know what that would look like. There's visionaries who actually want more seats, Alec.
Yeah.
Oh,
They have a hard time letting go. They want
wow.
to be. They still want to lead. That they're in. They're in a. Many times they're in multiple seats. So they're visionary, and then they're still over sales, or they're visionary and they're still over finance, right? And so. Yeah, so that's great that you haven't seen that. So I think it creates a lot of confusion that if they're in multiple seats and the whole reporting structure and there's end runs and it's not a good situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see how it could happen. Again, without having had that experience, I couldn't speak to that. What I can say, though, again, is to the degree that your visionary is spending 80% of their time in what we call the upper two quadrants, and ideally the upper left-hand quadrant of delegate and elevate. That's an exercise where you're doing what you absolutely love and you're the greatest at doing. I think that visionary feels a level of freedom and autonomy that is pretty exceptional to go live what we call the EOS life, which is doing what you love with people you love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately with time to pursue other passions. And so, I would just challenge those visionaries, not knowing them.
Mhm.
But, what does it mean to you? What does freedom look like for you? And I would just say if freedom looks the way that it is with you holding multiple seats, I don't know, maybe that's okay.
So, there's the four readiness factors that's spoken of in the book Rocket Fuel by Mark Winters, and I see two of the four readiness factors that are the most the biggest obstacles. So one is financial, right? So can I afford to have an integrator? And so oftentimes that's easy to overcome because a really good integrator will pay for themselves, right? So there's that expression, A players are free, right? So it's
Mhm.
actually, I think it's not accurate because A players will pay for themselves three, four, five fold, right? Like what that visionary is going to pay you, they're going to see a return on that. So that's often overcome. The psychological factor, I think, is maybe the biggest one, where they may not see themselves in their unique ability. There may be some identity issues where this is what my team knows me as. They know me as, I'm super busy and I'm in charge and I'm in control and I'm the smartest person in the room. And I've seen that as being a big obstacle. Um, and what would you say to visionaries that are, really struggling with making that decision? Should I make the decision to have my own integrator?
Mhm. Well, it's interesting because I have coached other entrepreneurs in the strategic coach program when they've approached me with this very same question. I mean, there's a number of things that you can do for yourself and also with partners. I mean, one is to engage with someone like you, Alec, who has gone through this process many, many times repeatedly, and it has a proven process for probably helping to coach visionaries on whether they truly do have the readiness to be able to let go and all the other things that need to be true. So having a partner in that process to think it through, I think is very key. But another one, a long time ago, I had a mentor by the name of Doug Lennox, and he called it the Woody Woofy. And it's what do you want for yourself? And it really just requires taking a clarity break where you sit in whatever place inspires you most with a notepad and a pen and just think about what would ideal state look like for me? What do I really want for myself? Not what I tell people I want for myself or what I think I should say I want for myself, but genuinely what I want for myself. I actually think visionaries are so generous in so many ways that they see it as selfish sometimes to want very specific things that might be perceived as icky, as being maybe self-serving or whatnot. I just urge visionaries, don't worry about that. Don't judge it. Just take that opportunity to get onto paper what you genuinely in your heart of hearts want for yourself without apology or
Mhm.
anything like that. And then maybe set it aside, think about it, come back to it, refine your list, tighten it up. Maybe some new things have come to mind, and then own that list. And then again, come back to someone like you, Alec, and say, look, this is what I really want for myself. Maybe some of it is not realistic, could be, but maybe all of it you could have for yourself if only you just gave yourself permission.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a really valuable process. And I think a piece of this too is once you've gotten maybe past that psychological hurdle, is to recognize that if you decide to go find your right fit integrator to prepare yourself, it's going to take a lot longer, maybe in terms of time investment, and I don't mean turnaround time in the maybe say 90-day cycle to hire an integrator, but just that you may need to invest more time in those 90 days just to make sure you get it right. And then as that integrator is on board for really a year, you want to invest time to make sure that that integrator understands a lot of philosophy, your history, the why behind the decision-making, context setting, because while it may seem very slow, especially if you're a quick start visionary, that will pay itself off in spades if you go slow to go fast.
Right.
So there's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
That is so good, Kelly. That is so good. I do agree with you. Us visionaries, it took me forever. And I had an employee that was with me for 8 years, and she's like, Alec, what do you want? And I go, what do you mean? She's like, what do you want? And so it took an employee of mine to really get me thinking, what do I truly want? Because it's all about what's best for other people, what's best for my customers, not really thinking about what I want in my role as Vision Spark and what I want in life. And I think oftentimes along those lines, visionaries, we tend to be pretty nice people, and we love our employees, generally speaking. And we often will promote someone on our team to be in that integrator role. And oftentimes it doesn't work out. So in your experience, Kelly, what would you have to share with those visionaries that maybe have an integrator right now where they're not succeeding, they're not doing the things they want, they don't really trust them to run the business? What would you share with them?
Well, there's a quote that goes, all great progress starts by telling the truth. So I would encourage those visionaries to get real, open and honest and vulnerable again with yourself and about what you're dealing with. And we look at it through the lens at EOS of right person for the seat. Okay, right person, right seat. And that looks like a get it, a want it, and a capacity. And so using the tools to just break down your thinking. You're not crazy. If it doesn't feel right, I'm sure there is something not right about that fit. And just get clear about your thinking. What's not right about it? Do they not really understand what the seat is? That would be a get it. Do they really want that seat? And do you want them to have that seat? If either one of those two were a no, it's a done deal. They are not right person for the seat. If capacity, meaning if there's time, intellectual training, support, other things that you can do to get them from a no to a yes, in my experience, is very rare that you can move a no to a yes there as well. It's possible, not very likely, then that's also a no. So I would just say to visionaries, just use your own thinking. You're really smart. You know how to solve complex problems. And I think you deserve it. Remind yourself you deserve to have the best business partner where you're going and what the business needs. Just get clear about your thinking. And then again, unapologetically, then make the hard decision, right? Because you can think about it all day long, but unless there's an action plan and you take those next steps, you're going to be stuck in that spot in the doom loop for longer than what you want. And if you are feeling like I don't have the courage to do it myself, enlist a partner, a thinking partner that can give you that encouragement to enter the danger and make that tough call. Don't go it alone.
And I've seen our clients, at least, that when they hire integrators, their company just takes off. Like, it's a game changer. No one has ever called me back and said, Alec, that was a complete waste of time and money. Like, they are scaling their business. They're making great people decisions. The revenue increases. They're getting the right customers, the biggest check. When clients or when visionaries make that decision on hiring the integrator, does EOS have any sort of data in terms of what the average growth is for a company that hires that integrator?
We do not, but boy, that would be really valuable information to have, wouldn't it? Maybe it's something that you and we can work on as a collaborative project, but we don't. It's just ancillary, right? Meaning qualitatively, we hear implementers say that the combination of implementing EOS with an EOS implementer and having a right fit integrator paired with that visionary, that combination is just a killer combination. So the integrator plus implementer is ideal state, gold standard. But again, no numbers to quantify.
Yeah, that would be cool if we had those numbers. So that sounds fun. We should work on something like that.
Yes. Yes. I'm sure we can do it.
Yeah. Now EOS has grown since you started 9 years ago. Can you share a little bit about your growth in those 9 years?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, when I stepped in 9 years ago, we had 151 EOS implementers. We now have 842. We're all getting together in San Antonio, Texas, actually next week. Everybody's coming together, which is going to be fantastic.
Wow.
At the time that I joined, EOS was a membership model, right? So implementers would pay to go to something like boot camp and training, and then they would pay various fees. It was never a percentage or royalty business model. But to protect EOS and the community of implementers and essentially put bubble wrap around what Gino and Don had created so many years before, one of the big changes we've made in that time is moving to a franchise model. So all of these different independent implementer brands folded into the EOS worldwide brand that you now see today. And that's created a lot of, I think, energy and enthusiasm. Again, going back to arrows pointed in the same direction, there's a lot of unity and strength around all of those implementers being together behind one brand with one purpose in the world, which is to help entrepreneurs get everything they want from their business.
Mhm.
Had 8 acquisitions. We have weathered COVID. We have built software. We bought the US conference from the original founders. And Rocket Fuel has been brought in-house as well. So just a tremendous amount of change over those 9 years.
Yeah. And they couldn't do any of that without you, Kelly, right?
The funny thing, Alec, is I always say I'm just the integrator, meaning I'm not diminishing the role of the integrator, but we are just have been very blessed with incredible team members and a community of implementers for whom without their support, we wouldn't be able to have accomplished anything that we've done. I say we haven't done anything of value without implementers by our side. So I really can't take very much credit for it.
Well, that's a testament to who you are. So that's you're a woman of great character and humility. So I'm curious, in those 9 years, what are you most proud of in terms of your accomplishments?
Mm.
Or maybe one
This
thing you're
one,
most proud of? Yeah.
well, the thing I'm most proud of is also the thing that terrifies me and keeps me up at 2 a.m., which is what I call the 3 Ps. And that is to protect, preserve, and perpetuate all that has made EOS good and impactful and holy in the world. So uh, sometimes I've done a better job of that than others over the course of 9 years, but I think that what Gino and Don created was so brilliant way back in the day. 2008 is when EOS Worldwide was incorporated. And when I came into the seat, I don't think that there was anything spectacular about my talent or history or experience at all. I think they just believed that somehow, through all of the layers of interview, that I might just be somebody who would put a wrapper around EOS and protect it and preserve it that way. So I like to think that the thing I'm most proud of is that we still have an amazing community of implementers who are aligned with our core values and aligned with our vision and aligned with our purpose and where we're going with our 10-year target. And so I think I'm most proud of that, ironically, out of everything. And if I can do that for as long as I'm in the seat, one day I won't be, but for as long as I'm in the seat, then I hope that I will have honored Gino and Don's legacy and done well by our community and by those that are benefiting from EOS.
Yeah. Well, and contrast that, what would you say your biggest mistake that you've made in your 9 years, or maybe a failure? I mean, we grow when we fail, so it's what does fail stands for, first attempt in learning, right? So so what would you say your biggest mistake is in those 9 years?
Well, there's so many. I mean, Alec, one day I'm going to write a book about all the mistakes because I hope to inspire integrators everywhere with that. But I'd say anytime, and there's been multiple examples of this, but where we have gone outside of our core focus,
Mm.
and that's helping entrepreneurs live their EOS life, and and that's through EOS mastery. And so I think there have been times that we've justified or sold ourselves on the idea that something that we're going to go do fits squarely within that, and it's just been dead wrong. And so there's been examples of that where we did campaigns or marketing ideas that didn't serve our target market. Remember, plumber next door is, the profile of, a target market entrepreneur. And so when we go outside of that and we're doing things like XM radio and big media spends, while it creates buzz, it confuses activity for results. And the best results we ever have are when we put 100% of our efforts into our EOS implementer community. So again, I could list like 100 different ways that we've gone wrong on that. And we have so many lessons learned. And sometimes we have to live those lessons more than once in a row before it, before we get it. So,
Yes, I'm right there with you. When in business school many years ago, we did a case study on Anheuser-Busch, which at the time was owned by a family in St. Louis, but they had purchased SeaWorld, right? So completely out of their core focus. Here you have a beer, a beverage company, and then they buy an amusement park, and completely out of their core focus, right? So I'll bring up that story, or I'll say something like, we talk about an idea, and I'm like, hey, is this like Anheuser-Busch buying SeaWorld? I mean, are we completely out of our core focus here?
right. And I mean, I know I'm the integrator, but I can get just as excited as anybody else about something that, again, we've convinced ourselves is going to be the right fit. And so it requires, that discernment component that we
Mhm.
talk about in Working Genius, to pull that back and really, really do critical thinking about that. So that's something that we put a lot more attention into, I'd say, today than we might have over some of those years.
Is one of your working genius, is it discernment? Are you a
Mhm.
D?
I'm galvanizing and discernment in that
Okay,
order is my working
great.
genius.
Okay. I'm inventor. Is that the I? Innovator
Mm-hmm.
and the galvanizer. So that's
Okay,
yeah.
so we share the G.
We share the G. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've found that assessment to be a really good assessment for managing teams. And we want to get a project with the team done, making sure we have all of the six working genius elements there. So that has been,
A question for you, if I can,
yeah,
if I pose a question to
sure.
you. Do you find a trend with great integrators? Are they more of any two of those six working geniuses?
I have seen that most integrators have that discernment. That seems to be constant, right? With 80 to 90% of integrators, they have that discernment. So I've not seen any with the W, the wonder component. So I've not seen that. So my integrator is discernment and enablement or tenacity. I can't remember, but he's really good at determining, should we be doing this? He's a high fact finder, and he's just really objective. And I'm really confident when he makes a decision, I'm confident it's the right decision.
Yeah, that's a good combo as well. I think
Yeah,
if you integrator that had the W for wonder or and I for invention, you might have problems on your hands, right? I mean, if
yeah.
those top two working genius.
And I think a lot of integrators, I'm sorry, a lot of visionaries, when they are interviewing for an integrator, when they're just doing it themselves and they don't have an expert, oftentimes they are impressed with someone that is a lot like them. They have these visionary tendencies. And then they hire another visionary who has more ideas, right? Creates more chaos, and it doesn't work out. So I see that happening a lot. Visionaries tend not to be great interviewers because we like people and we can be really impressed by someone who interviews really well.
Yeah. Well, visionaries like everybody. I mean, they're people.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, so companies, what traits would you say that an integrator must have to be successful in their role?
Mm. Well, there's so many. I mean, you must be execution focused. I mean, if you don't want to get to the win of seeing something over the finish line, not just 80% there, but over the finish line and done well,
Mhm.
that would be an issue. So execution and a laser focus capability to getting things to that finish line. Typically detail oriented component, right? There's just so many moving parts within organizations. An integrator really needs to be able to harness, even if they themselves are not pulling the data, but pulling it together to make really great data driven decisions that move the company forward. So that capability to handle and tolerate lots of information and to have the discernment to know what to do with it. Integrators, in my opinion, have to be the best communicators in the organization overall. And I would argue almost sometimes better than the visionary because you are, again, aligning that human energy. If you can't, through the spoken word, in person, virtual, in writing, make things happen, that's a challenge. So typically, you can have different styles of communication, but you must be very good at connecting with people. Speaking of people skills, I often will say to anyone, even if you're a manager, if you don't love people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you have zero business being a manager of any sort. But it means more when you're an integrator. So you got to just love people, the day in, the day out, boots on the ground, understanding that you're going to have to set aside some of your own personal things that you've got going that day for the greater good of whatever's happening with the people side of the business.
Mhm.
Um, I think integrators need to be great at strategy. If you're in that upper echelon of being an integrator, you're not just executing, you're actually a amazing, thought-provoking, strategic partner to the visionary and to the board or whoever else you might have in your structure with ownership to driving the business forward. So I would say those are some of the biggies.
I was speaking in California in September, and I was doing a talk about hiring the right number two leader. And I talked about one of the indispensable traits is that the integrator must love people. They have to be a great coach. They have to be good at holding people accountable, but they have to be people oriented. And one of the CEOs there said, "I have the best integrator, Alec, and he has all of the traits that you mentioned, except one. He is not people oriented. He does not like people, um, but he gets stuff done, and so he's able to instill fear and make sure things happen. And I'm confident I have the right integrator." and so, and I said, "Well, how long has he been with you?" I said, "6 months." I said, what's your turnover like? What's your retention like?" And he's like, "Well, it's not very good." I said, "Do you have A players leaving your company?" He's like, "Yes, I do." I said, "I think you may want to rethink your integrator in that position." But I just thought that was fascinating in today's world that someone thought they had the right integrator when they weren't people oriented.
Though, Alec, you'd be surprised though. It depends on your culture. And again, I don't disagree with you, but in command and control cultures, that integrator is probably very common. And that's a cookie cutter kind of integrator who just, it's like the intentionality behind people is simply not there. And then the opposite end of that are like the happy accident cultures where
Mhm.
everybody's so harmonious and gets along, but then there's very little attention to results. When you think about Lencioni's pyramid, where trust is at the bottom and at the very top, it's getting, accountability and results out of the team. So, that's kind of the art about being an integrator is that you have the tools like EOS tools or other tools that may be out there that you're using to run the business. That's the science behind, the seat. But the artistic component is how do you work with a myriad of lots of different personalities, lots of different talent, lots of different capabilities, and people who have lives of their own outside of work that infiltrate their way into, how that team member might be performing. And you have to have a knack for, as an integrator, for how to get in that mindset and
Mhm.
how to work with different kinds of people. So it's very much art. I think a lot of that is lost in the world and misunderstood, that integrators, that they just go execute. Oh no, it is so much more than that, so much deeper than that when you have, I think, a really, really great talented integrator.
Yeah. And there, and what I've seen over the years too, we help our clients hire integrators, and we've been doing this for over 10 years now, actually, in helping companies running an EOS hire integrators. And we've gotten a lot better over the years. One of the things that we used to not be very good with was coaching our clients on how to effectively onboard a new integrator. A lot of our clients have never hired an integrator before. And so day one, the integrator comes in, and we've had different types of visionaries. The visionaries will onboard them differently. What do you think is the best way to onboard an integrator to a company that's never had an integrator before?
So, yeah, my first piece of advice to the visionary is dedicate a lot more time than what you would anticipate. And so, it's flippantly said, well, you should have a same page meeting, and that's
Mm,
whatever level of frequency you want to have them. But onboarding is a wholly different thing. And it's where you want to spend some really dedicated time sinking into the business, because what you're doing, you never had an integrator before. So you're going to be learning too as a visionary, how do I do this whole visionary integrator relationship thing? But it really starts with, I encourage visionaries to go through, how did you start your company? What inspired you to do what you do? What is the history? What worked and what didn't over time, and why? What is the context for why the business works and is successful or not? What are the greatest challenges? You can do even a SWOT analysis, the strengths,
mhm,
weakness, opportunities, and threats. And also share more about yourself personally, because the more that you understand each other as humans, the more you can also understand how to work together and to communicate. So it's these really, again, rich, deep conversations that don't go quickly. So
mhm,
I would encourage creating a 90-day plan. It's really a year of onboarding. Truly, in my
okay.
opinion, it's a full year before you have an integrator who has their legs underneath themselves and feels really capable with strength. But those first 90 days are really important to make sure you just have enough dedicated time to convey your thinking and to learn about your integrator too, because during the interview process, it's so high level, you don't fully walk away with probably all of what you've actually got on board. You want to see all the
Mm,
fruit of what they've lived through, they themselves too, and their successes and what worked and what didn't. So again, for me, really think it out, put it on the calendar, block out these time blocks, create what you're going to accomplish on those days and times. Like today, we're going to talk about this component of our history. We're going to talk about our business model here. We're going to talk about and you just create that structure. So I would
mhm.
say, as much as visionaries might want to walk into and just have maybe a more free flowing onboarding, I really encourage more structure behind it. It's a little painful to take the time to do it, but I will say, when I came in as the integrator, Don Tinney for 90 days did that very same thing for me as the integrator. And then when Mark O'Donnell, I actually interestingly chose him as the visionary at about 5 years ago, when we had a change of things on our accountability chart. And we spent that same time too. So it does work, but it
Mhm.
requires planning and structure.
Very good. We have a question from someone here listening. George asked, I'm newer to EOS. If I'm a visionary and I'm looking to bring on an integrator, what is the best way to find an effective integrator? What criteria should I look for?
Oh, well, and my answer is, it depends, but how you get to the answer that you're looking for, George, is literally, I would arrange time with Alec and his team, because he is so good and proficient at knowing how to sit with a visionary and get the most out of you so that you get what you want for yourself. And he's done this so many times, helping so many companies running on EOS, so many visionaries. I would go to Alec and just sit down and have that conversation with him. And out of that, based upon what you want for yourself, he is going to create a tailor-made set of characteristics or qualities that you're going to look for that will complement you, not diminish you, but actually highlight you. And if there's some things that you either don't want to do or you're not very good at, he'll help fill those gaps too. So the easy answer there is you've got a great resource right here with Alec.
Yeah, and feel free to put some questions in the chat here. We got a few minutes left. Um, Kelly, I got one more question for you. Can you share an example of where you've empowered Mark to focus on what he does best and help the business grow because of that?
Oh, I've got a great recent example. So when Mark came into his seat 5 years ago as the visionary, at that time, I had a criteria that anybody I brought in as the visionary would not, if they were an implementer, would not have clients because I felt like we needed a full-time, full attention visionary. Well, it was about a year ago, I came to Mark and I said, Mark, you are so good as a tinkerer in the workshop, right? Pulling levers and seeing where our target market implementers and clients smile and light up and how we can actually make sure we're serving our target market well. I think you should get back into the session room. Just a few clients. And so he is now doing that. And I think it is such an amazing opportunity for him to connect with our target market firsthand, talk to check writers, talk to those that are running on EOS, using software, not using software in the session room. And he's so good that way. He's great with people. People love him. He will learn so much and then bring that intelligence back to EOS Worldwide in our community of implementers.
Yeah, what a great example. And I'm sure Mark is grateful for your encouragement on that because when my integrator encourages me, he's like, Alec, I got that, right? I want you to do this. This is where you light up, right? So that is just it's a shot in our arm when our integrator comes alongside and encourages us in our unique ability. So yeah,
That's
that's
fun.
great.
It is neat to see a visionary light up with enthusiasm that they're able to
Mhm.
do something that maybe they couldn't have done before.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time with us today. I appreciate you and all that you do for EOS. And of course, I love seeing you at Strategic Coach.